Welcome to Champagne Problems Podcast. I am your host, Robbie Shaw. Join us as we explore mental and emotional well-being, physical optimization, and the journey to discovering your highest self. Champagne Problems is brought to you in proud partnership with Bond Buzz, the alcohol-free social spirit. Bond Buzz is an award-winning alcohol-free functional beverage company creating adult drinks that are health-forward, all-natural, and uncompromising. They're on a mission to create a future where feeling good and getting buzzed exist in absolute harmony and not at the expense of your health. Their bold concoctions offer focus and energy while calming the nervous system for a night on the town or a productive afternoon. Bond Buzz uses only natural ingredients and a hyper-functional blend of nootropics, adaptogens, and functional mushrooms to amplify the sensory experience. If you're looking for a drink to help you cool off after work or a drink to stimulate your mind and body without the harmful, icky hangovers, drink Bond Buzz for good days only. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for hanging in there while we took a little break. What were we doing, you might ask? Well, we created that badass intro you just saw. We picked up a new sponsor, Bond Buzz, the alcohol-free social beverage, and we expanded our content a little further out into the wellness space. We have an insane lineup of guests and topics coming, so stick with us. Now, as for today, we will be staying true to the month of January when so many people will be going dry, and I'll be sitting down with Heather Lowe, founder of Ditched the Drink. Ditch the Drink is a wellness company dedicated to helping high-achieving professionals move away from alcohol and towards self-discovery and creating the life of their dreams. Heather is an award-winning and highly recognized life and recovery coach. Heather is crushing it, and not to mention saving lives. Let's talk to Heather. Heather Lowe, welcome to Champagne Problems.
Thanks, Robbie. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, man, I couldn't be happier. I can't believe you made the trip. West Chicago?
Yes.
West Chicago to Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yes, and it's really good to be here because we had a bit of a bumpy landing on the way in.
Yes, please, do tell. I think we need to hear it again.
Where we didn't actually land. We started taking off for a second time. So anyways, I'm thrilled to actually be here sitting on this couch with you now. In one piece.
Nightmare among nightmares for me. The pump fake landing. Oh my God, that just gives me the willies. Holy moly! All right. So thank you again. I love that you traveled here to do this, to sit on the couch and have a fantastic conversation with me. I hope to wow you with some food after this. I know it's hard coming from Chicago, but what do y'all do different? Y'all do different hot dogs, right?
We do different hot dogs.
Yeah.
We do different pizza.
That's right.
Yeah.
We do. I do ketchup and mayo on my hot dog.
Oh, I'm a fan of mayo, so I'm not gonna.
Don't knock it.
I'm not gonna knock you for that.
And then pizza. I had Detroit pizza last night. Would that be a similar style?
Maybe, yeah.
Chicago's like
crust.
flipped, right?
Chicago's got a really thick crust.
Yeah.
Deep dish.
Deep dish. Got it. All right. Cool. So I like to start my interviews, my conversations with rapid fire questions. These I made fun. Sometimes I like people to get squirmy, but I'm not going to make you squirm.
The only part of the conversation that makes me nervous is this part right here.
It's
okay?
the rapid fire.
Yes.
What intimidates the hell out of you?
Oh my God. Basically everything. I'm a very, very nervous person.
Are you?
Everything scares me. Yeah. I'm totally afraid all the time, but authority, major, like thinking I'm in trouble or did something wrong or somebody's mad at me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do you have anxiety and that kind of stuff?
Of course I do.
Yeah. Well, I know that answer, but okay, well, we can dig into some of that later, but there's a difference between just being intimidated by certain things and then having crippling anxiety.
Yeah, I'm not scared of you right now.
Good. Let's keep going then. All right, here we go. Second question. What's your favorite smell?
Oh, clean laundry, probably.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, I like things to be really clean. That probably goes with anxious.
Sure, there's a theme here.
Yeah, or the great outdoors. Any good smell from the great outdoors.
I like it. I asked this yesterday with some people, and somebody said, "Oh, fresh towel out of the dryer." So I think that's probably very similar. That fresh, clean smell. Fill in the blank. Taylor Swift is
amazing.
Good. You fall into one category or the other.
Yeah, absolute queen.
You're in our category. Yeah. Good deal. What movie can you quote the most from?
Maybe Pretty Woman, if you remember that way back when.
Of course.
Yeah.
Julia Roberts and what's his name?
Richard Gere.
Richard Gere. Yeah. God, that's. I haven't seen that a bunch of times. I've seen it plenty. But you've clearly seen it a bunch. It's a good one, I hear.
Yeah, I actually don't like to watch movies like on repeat.
Yeah.
Typically, like one and done. I want to watch something new.
Yeah.
But I do know a lot of quotes from that movie.
I'm the same way now. Growing up, I loved watching movies over and over and over, especially comedies. Like I would memorize them. Mm-hmm. I can probably give you word for 10 different comedies.
And then you're instantly connected to somebody else who also knows all those quotes,
thing.
right? Like your immediate best friends. It's like sober people are immediate best friends. Yeah, you're
right.
immediate best friends with somebody who can quote the same movies as you.
That's right. Well, so you grew up in Wisconsin.
I did.
And Wisconsin is the home of Marquette. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Marquette is where Chris Farley went to college.
Yeah.
And I can quote every word of probably 3 of his movies.
I love him. I've met him. I love him.
No way.
Yeah, my mom worked with his grandma, actually.
No way.
What a great guy. What a quotable person, for sure.
Well, just for my own pleasure, give me some story on that. How did that...
My mom is an occupational therapist and worked in a assisted living. And yeah, his grandma, Alice Farley, was one of her patients.
No
just the sweetest woman. And yeah, I met him at the movie theater, actually, just by accident. We just were in Madison, Wisconsin, and walked out of the movie theater, and he's very recognizable, of course. So
that is amazing.
Ran up and fawned all over him, and he was funny and sweaty and hilarious.
Exactly how we should be.
Yep.
All right, last question. First live music concert and where?
MC Hammer,
Oh my
Madison, Wisconsin.
God.
Yep. And not only did I see him once, I saw him twice, and I also wore Hammer pants. So,
oh my God, I love that.
So now you know I'm cool.
I love that so much. You're so cool. Hammer was like, I heard stories about Hammer back in his heyday when he was the hottest thing on the planet. Like all the rappers, all the gangsters, all the guys that you thought were like hard and mean, all thought he hung the moon.
Oh, he was too legit to quit,
right?
That's
right.
That's kind of a funny question because it doesn't really share anything about me. Like I don't necessarily identify with like MC Hammer was my first concert.
Sure.
But
well, that's the point of the
question. I got to be there. Yeah.
There's plenty of people that answer things that, that's the point. Like,
right.
I don't listen to that anymore. Like so many people are like New Kids on the Block.
Right.
It's just like childhood. All right. So let's get to know you a little bit more. Give us just a little background. Let's do, obviously we could sit here for an hour and talk about, birth to now. Let's do some highlights on what has shaped you to this point? Where are you from? What kind of childhood, college, post-college?
I love it. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
So, I was born in small town Wisconsin, the drunkest state in America. I'll just say that. My parents met in a beer tent.
Yeah.
Where else would you meet in Wisconsin? I also met my husband in a bar, of course, married over 20 years. But I was the first child of divorce in both of my families, and I was under 3 years old when my parents divorced. And I was the only child between my mom and my dad.
Gotcha.
So I think that was a huge factor for me growing up. And what it turned into was my perfectionist qualities and people-pleasing because I wanted everybody to be okay. And I wanted everyone to know that everybody was okay.
Yeah.
And by me being okay, which I think perfect, by me being perfect and well-behaved and getting good grades and not giving anyone anything to worry about is the role that I took on, I think, at a very young age, like at a toddler age. So I grew up and my mom remarried, and so I have a blended family. And my dad also remarried. And I went to college in Wisconsin, in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and got a degree in social work, always wanting to help people. And met my husband, as I mentioned, in a bar, and we moved into Chicago as young adults. My drinking career is I had my first beer at 12 years old.
Nice.
It seems alarmingly young, I understand, but in Wisconsin,
12 was
it was pretty regular. And so drank through high school in barns, fields, anywhere I could, right? And then in college, upgraded to from barns to bars and drank and loved to dance, loved to go out, loved to socialize. I surrounded myself with a lot of friends because, again, I identified as our only child for most of my life until I got a blended family. So it's just always had so much FOMO, always wanted to go out, always wanted to be hanging out with people, and loved to dance, loved to chase boys, the whole thing. So that was college in Wisconsin. I met my husband and we moved to Chicago. He loves Chicago Bears. Sorry, everybody. But any Packer fans out
we
there.
have the worst NFL team in the league right now.
And I loved Oprah, so Chicago seemed like the perfect place for us. We wanted big city. And there we continued drinking, but we had a little more money because we had jobs now.
Yeah.
So we were going to Cubs games and concerts and dinners. And
living the dream.
living that young urban lifestyle. So from there, we got a house in the suburbs and had babies, right? So we decided that he would keep working and I would work part-time. I had moved from social work very quickly, realizing that if I didn't write policy, I wasn't going to be able to change the world in the way I wanted to. So I moved to human resources, which I felt like was helping people in the workplace, a different sort of help.
Yeah.
And so I got certified in HR, and most of my career, I've sold HR solutions locally, nationally, and globally. So that is my background. When the kids were young, my husband was traveling a lot, and those were the choices that we made together. But my social life came to a crashing halt, as you can imagine. And so that bedtime, bath time, dinner time routine was long, and I was sipping wine right through it to try to keep a little bit of myself. When I did work, I would want happy hours, anything work related, so I was probably like a drink pusher at work just to give me an excuse to be able to go out and have a little bit of a social life. That's my background. So my drinking really escalated when I was faced with the death of 3 loved ones, within 3 years. I did 3 eulogies.
Oh, God.
Yeah, one was my dad, and 2 were guy friends that were my age. Everybody left without warning. They were pretty tragic situations.
Oh, no.
And so this is where my drinking kind of took a turn from what was seemingly normal, even though I've known my whole life it wasn't normal.
Sure.
To a problem because I was drinking as self-medication for my grief. And I knew that. Because I did the eulogies and because I'm a perfectionist, I really wanted to perform and do a very beautiful job for them.
Yeah.
And I did. And then when the services were over, I told myself to get over it. Like I wasn't allowed to feel it was over, just get over it. And it was pretty hard to get over my heartbreak. So I just tried to numb it out with alcohol, and this sort of escalated. Gotcha.
Okay, lots of ways we can go, but I just personally want to ask, often we hear stories about addiction to whatever taking a sharp turn for the worse after, call it a tragic event, but really in relative terms, just a painful event, and that can be anything. Do you think it was the pain that you were so uncomfortable with?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had never learned to cope.
Right.
I'd never learned to cope with anything. I always had alcohol. If I had my first drink at 12, I had always had alcohol.
Yeah.
I literally didn't know how to cope with any feeling or life. I was actually still a toddler myself with my emotions, throwing a temper tantrum or whatever, and then just pouring alcohol on it. So I did not know how to deal with pain at all.
Yeah. And the reason, I often get into the deep discussion on the causes of addiction and that kind of stuff. And there's always this common denominator of sensitive people, and maybe you're born sensitive. Maybe, like you said, you've just lived a life where you haven't had to deal with things that are super tough, maybe because we drank over it, maybe just because you haven't experienced them. But ultimately, what ends up is a very sensitive individual and one that doesn't withstand pain very well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm still that.
Right.
And obviously I deal with it in various ways, but it's not like if something tragic happens, I just welcome the pain and go through all the processes of
Bring
grief
it.
just healthily and, do it perfectly. No, I suppress and I
Yeah.
avoid and, I do all those things because pain sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a fun fact is because I was a social work major, I took a test in college about my emotional quotient, and I'm a genius level emotional quotient,
Love
which
it.
my professor had never seen before. So,
Wow.
she was thrilled. But what that kind of means is it could be highly sensitive. I kind of like the word sensing, a highly
Sensing,
sensing
yeah. You
person.
feel everything.
Because, yeah, I know what's happening in a room. I know how somebody's feeling. I do have a bit of a sixth sense about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it does maybe stem some from childhood and overly trying to make the
please
people
the
around me
room, yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
Right? So, and again, taking the attention off of me at times. So, no, I don't want anyone to worry about me.
Mm-hmm.
And at other times, I was also class clown, put the attention on me to take it off of somebody else. So always like other focused and not allowing myself even time or space to feel or be.
Yeah. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
God, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. And alcohol's a wonderful numbing agent, right?
I would say it's probably the best.
Yeah.
I mean, we can talk about that in a second, but let's dive over into I often say alcohol and wellness, but what I really mean is just take a heavy addiction and sobriety and let's knock those aside for a minute and let's go right in the middle and just discuss alcohol in its rarest form. Like what does it do to us? How does it affect us? Why is it so, I hate to say valuable, but it is. Like it works. It really, really works. And further down in this conversation, I want to talk about the trends and that kind of stuff, but let's talk about how it affects us.
Yeah.
How did it affect you in certain ways other than the addiction stuff?
Well, so I always say it's a problem. It's a solution before it's a problem. It's meant to be a solution. That's why we're taking it, right?
Right.
So upon first sip, I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it a lot. I mean, clearly, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would be sitting here on this couch probably. But yeah, it hit something and I felt good and I felt free. And it gave me some courage to do things I wouldn't normally do. I mean, I would push my little high school freshman self into senior parties that I may or may not have been invited to,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it takes a little bravery to show up at that barn door.
No question.
And so a little
Talk to the boy.
little liquid courage helped, right? Talk to the boys.
Yeah.
Tell them what I really think, right? So it gave me that courage. It helped me belong. And truly, I didn't know any other alternative. Growing up in Wisconsin, the culture is so centered around alcohol. I didn't know any happy, sober people.
Yeah.
Not drinking was never even a thought, an idea for me. I didn't know anybody.
Right.
If somebody didn't drink,
They weren't around.
yeah, or it was because they had a problem with it. They got slapped on the hand. They were living a sad life because they didn't come to the party then or whatever that was, the celebration or. So I didn't have
it's
any
like a discipline.
Mm-hmm. And it was like they're sad. You know, they go to church basements and shame on them kind of attitude. So nobody would desire that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know anything different. It gave me a lot of courage. I liked it. And then when I got older, when my kids were young, I had a really loud inner critic, always a really loud inner critic, and it dialed that down. It kind of shut that up.
Yep.
And so it was, for me, alcohol provided relief from myself, from being myself. And as we just mentioned, a highly sensing person, they're going to feel a lot of things, and that's a lot, right? So it dialed it down, and it did its job.
Yeah.
Till it didn't.
I think that's an interesting way we can go is I think a lot about 2023, 2024, and the culture of alcohol. And a lot of us in the work we do, specifically you and my podcast and that kind of stuff, we're noticing some major trend shifts, especially in the younger generations. There's less people drinking. There's less people being drawn into it. They're more wellness oriented. They're more health oriented, and I love that. But I worry a little in that none of us started out an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe, you can draw it back to genetics and say I've got a disease or whatever, all that stuff. But that stuff aside, nobody started drinking alcoholically, or not many people. And so eventually, and plenty of us, you, for example, lived a pretty long life of no real severe consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people do that. I know a lot of people that have drank their entire lives, and by definition, alcoholically,
Mm-hmm.
functioning, high-paying job, family, you know, whatever. I'm sure there's some issues in there somewhere, but all in all, nothing too severe. And then a curveball gets thrown in their life,
Mm-hmm.
like one you experienced, where
Mm-hmm.
it is so overwhelming that you have nowhere to turn than more of what you've been doing for so long.
Mm-hmm.
That is where I worry a little bit about, you know, people often say, is this trend here to stay? Is it sustainable? Is alcohol gonna be the next tobacco? And maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Still works very, very, very well. And I don't think people are just not drinking at all. I think people are just more conscious of it. And I worry about those curveballs that are inevitably coming.
Mm-hmm.
I just think the risk is still there.
Yeah. So
Talk to me.
Yeah. Well, I love to think that alcohol is not a necessary part of life.
Sure.
And so I love that I've quit what our house looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got teenage daughters. And I love what our vacations look like.
Yeah.
And my husband doesn't drink around me. So he basically doesn't drink.
Right.
So we are having more fun than anybody.
Yeah.
And so we're in the pool in Mexico, and we are literally having more fun than anyone. We're at the Pitbull concert. We're in the pit at Coldplay. We are having a freaking blast,
Yeah.
and none of us are drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to show that. And kids these days, Robbie, they're like, the girls, they're walking around with their Stanley cups being hydrated and doing like a 10-step skincare routine at night. This is not what I was doing in college at
No.
all, right?
No.
Right.
No.
So I think the younger generations get it. And maybe they are going to yoga class. Maybe they're meditating a little bit. You know,
Sure.
maybe they're tapping into some of those things, other ways of coping that I wish I had known all along.
Right.
I'm hopeful. But
Right.
I'm optimistic, you know?
Well, no, you make a great point. And I'm, you know, it's my job to be a little bit of a devil's advocate
got
just
you.
for conversation purposes. But I do try to look at, you know, some reality. But I love the point you made, because there is a huge factor in early in life drinking, you know, and it's, you know, I often use the example of the people that I was drinking with at 12, 13, and 14 are all sober now. We're all, we were all had problems with it. You know, you start in your 18, 19, 20, 21 years, you learn how to cope a little better. You've got some tools before you start off. And so the statistics show, the science is there, that the earlier you start, the higher probability of addiction later.
Right.
So, great point.
There's other things, though. Like,
Of course.
we're all looking to escape pain.
Sure.
So there's vaping now, right? That wasn't a thing. There's scrolling, you know,
Oh, yeah.
gambling, like you name it. You can find a way to escape pain.
Yes.
Alcohol just might not be as popular. It was one of like fewer ways, perhaps, in the past, right?
Yeah.
Of options we had.
Yeah.
And now there's maybe a lot of options
There really are.
to escape pain. So
In
it
fact,
doesn't have to be alcohol.
I partake in a lot of them. You
Right,
know? I
exactly.
do my fair bit of scrolling. Well, let's do that. So what are the ways that people are, I hate to say substituting, because that sounds intentional, and it's not intentional, especially in your younger years. You're just finding what's out there. And I do think technology is a massive addiction. I mean, what else? Vaping, I know. Weed is certainly one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know what they all are, but any way to artificially raise your feel good chemicals,
Sure.
right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit about just alcohol culture in general, because I feel like the work you do and the work I do, we are trying to reshape that culture. We're trying to change that culture. We're trying to denormalize. Is that the right word? Is that a word? Denormalize? Hey, check.
Destigmatize.
Well,
Normal. Just
yeah, the normalization of, you know, of the negative consequences. That is such a major part of the alcohol culture. You know, so let's talk some about those. Like, what is the alcohol culture? What does that look like in Wisconsin? What did it look like?
just drinking all the time, everywhere for everything,
Right.
sun up till sundown, right? And
Yeah.
what a weirdo if you didn't
Sure.
drink, right? But for me, it was like, there's also the mommy wine culture, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also, I was often in my job the only female salesperson on all male sales teams. So there's a boys' club,
Yep.
drinking.
Yep.
And I also talk to workplaces. So drinking at work as part of the job, often drinking felt like part of the job, being in
Yeah.
sales, right? Because
Yeah.
I had access to the decision makers at a bar or a happy hour or a networking event that I might not have in the office.
Mm-hmm.
So drinking is the norm. When you're not drinking, then you're on the outs. And you're not drinking because something's wrong with you, not because
Mm-hmm.
something's wrong with alcohol, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not drinking sort of is like shame on you versus congratulations, what a healthy choice,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So that's what I want to change. If anybody says they're not drinking for any reason or season or lifetime, congratulations. That's amazing. Good on you.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a positive thing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a very positive thing.
Yeah. I think a lot about the normalization piece and, go into the kind of college atmosphere
Mhm.
and all the things that are going on, not everywhere, but in the party towns and the people that are partaking in that stuff. I mean, list them off. Blacking out,
Oh, yeah.
hungover as shit,
Yeah, throwing up.
fighting,
Yeah, sexual encounters that you wouldn't normally
sexual
drink till he's
abuse.
cute.
I mean, the
Falling
the
down.
risky behavior.
Frat culture.
Frat culture, sure. I mean, bar culture, just
Yeah.
in general. I mean, I guess you could call that frat culture, but I mean, just bar culture in general.
But we see these images in like every movie that we watch. In every, it's
yeah.
everywhere,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Get the girls drunk,
Mm-hmm.
and guys do dumb stuff when they're drunk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody gets hurt.
Yep.
But we're
But it's
praising
normal.
it, right? It's normal.
Right. That's the culture piece that I know you are trying to shift, is that normalization of terrible shit. Right?
Yeah.
It's fascinating now when you get to a certain point where you look at things and it's like, so, speaking from experience, massive screaming fight
Mm-hmm.
with a girl, maybe even a guy, go home, drink more, do something stupid, wake up, tell the story to a group of people, everybody's laughing, go to class, come back. Maybe you're the talk of the house, talk among your friends because of something crazy you did the night before. Do it again. And that is respected,
Yeah.
normal, idolized.
You probably have a bruise. You probably have a bruise from falling down.
No question.
And a couple of
My
them.
shins
your
are
entire
just
body.
terribly
let's say.
torn up.
Yeah, and it's hilarious, right?
Right. Exactly. So, what can we do? How can we shift that piece? What do you think? What comes to mind?
I know what's coming to mind is that it continues through adulthood because there's holders for your drink in the shower.
Right.
And there's a purse that's full of wine. So it's not just like coming of age, exploration, doing something naughty, doing something wrong, doing something away from your parents, trying something out, thinking it's funny. The funny is protection. That's the armor that we wear because honestly, we're ashamed and afraid of what that might mean. People would tell me stories and I didn't really remember. It was pretty foggy from the night before, right? What I did. And it was easier to laugh it off than to take an honest look at that. So it's just a piece of armor that we wear. And collectively, drinking has gotten so, they've had to promote it so much, especially to women and mothers because that was an untapped market, right? So we, make parenting easy, make motherhood easy. You can do it all. Or join in on the boys club or be this. Bottles are shaped like women's bodies, right? Like it's sexy and attractive and we all want that. So we all go to that. But what you're saying to denormalize it, like that's not normal, right? Hurting yourself isn't normal. So we have to share another side to the story. And some people say to me like, you don't want to become one of those like sober like preachers, like being preachy
No.
about sobriety or anything.
No.
And I don't. But you know what? I would show my drink all the time. I would post my drink all the time. Why can't I share my sobriety with the same pride? And sharing my happy sober life is honestly still, even as a sober coach, even though it's my career and it's my everything, it's still half as much as I was promoting alcohol as a drinker, right?
Right.
But we are
That's a good point.
uncomfortable seeing that.
Yeah.
We can look at Bloody Marys and glasses of wine on the ocean, on a boat all day long,
Yeah.
right? But when somebody says, I'm sober, it's like, whoa, weird. Okay, mute.
Yeah. Yeah. What if we did away with the word sober?
Yeah, because it sounds like somber. It sounds sad,
Somber.
doesn't it? Yeah, and
That's
it's
right.
yeah, totally. What would you replace it with?
God, well, the point would be that you don't have to replace it. There shouldn't have to be a label, right? It's
Like drinker
I
versus
don't drink.
non-drinker.
You know, just because I went to jail and have 7 DUIs doesn't mean I need to tell you that I had to get sober. How about I just like the person who is worried about their liver, we don't drink. Me and my buddy don't drink.
Yeah, well, that is what I say. So it's sort of the same as removing alcoholic. Same thing,
Sure.
because you're blaming the person versus the substance, of course, but also you're leading with, like, I don't want to say your biggest weakness, but like your biggest challenge, perhaps your biggest struggle. We don't do that with someone anywhere else, right?
Yeah.
We don't say, like, I'm Heather. You don't lead with, anything.
Yeah.
You're just a person.
Right.
But if you are an alcoholic or if you are sober, you lead with that, which is just sort of interesting.
Well, and it speaks to the, like you've said a couple times, where it's abnormal to not drink. And so you feel like you have to have an excuse. And I mean, I've felt this way many times,
Right.
especially early when I stopped drinking. It was, I can't drink, or I quit drinking. How about I don't drink?
That's what gives you the label, though. You're not drinking. You wouldn't necessarily be an alcoholic if you just kept drinking, right? When you
Sure.
quit, all of a sudden it's like, oh, something's wrong with him.
Right, but we feel
Yeah.
the need to explain it.
Absolutely.
And often people in sobriety wear it on their sleeves and want people to know that they're sober, and they shout it from the rooftops because they're so proud. And I fully subscribe to that because I used to do the same thing. But it does imply a problem. And then there's other people that don't drink, not because they had a problem, because they chose not to.
Right.
So my point is, I feel like there's two groups,
And we need to open the
and
spectrum
we should open it up. Yeah.
for more options. And there's also, like I said, not drinking for a reason or a season or a lifetime. And actually, a third of the population doesn't drink.
I know.
For lots
I
of
know.
reasons, right? Whether that's religion or cultural norms or a stage of motherhood or a medication they're on or a fitness quest or whatever it is. So we're really excluding people when we don't have options for everyone. And it really shouldn't matter. And I mean, I love to say, oh, I love to drink. I just don't drink alcohol, right?
I drink like a fish,
I
just
do.
not alcohol.
I do. I love to drink. I love to party. I always have 3 drinks in front of me. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I've had 3 drinks since I've been here. So it's just not alcohol.
Yeah, yeah. I drink a good bit of mocktail NA stuff, and I don't know why. I often think about that. You know, it's part of the culture. It was such my identity for so long. I don't know. Maybe it makes me still feel a part of. I don't know.
Yeah, a sense of belonging.
Yeah,
And just a ritual.
the ritual for sure.
Often people just want to keep the ritual and change the drink. And I love it. Even my drinking friends get on board. You know, I always say, like, the vegetarian decides where you eat and the sober person decides where you drink, because I'll go anywhere. I'll go to any bar, brewery, whatever, if they have a drink for me. And if they don't, we're going somewhere else, right? And I'm bringing 10 people with me.
Yeah.
So the places that are offering that are definitely getting my business. But we need it to be safe for people to explore, because also, as we talked about, when I started evaluating my relationship with alcohol, and that's what it is. It's just an experiment where you're evaluating for a lot of people. Let that be safe to do without committing to a life without drinking forever.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Have periods of time where you've tried drinking. Now you're going to try not drinking. then you can kind of decide what aligns with your values, what feels good to you, and how do you want to continue. And you can do that without saying, I'm sober or I'm abstaining from alcohol from now until the rest of my life, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm not drinking right now. Oh, you're sober, or are you an alcoholic? Those aren't fair labels for somebody who's just trying to evaluate this like you would anything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to go to church. I'm trying to run a marathon, right? I'm
Yeah.
trying meditation. I'm trying to remove gluten, see what that does for me. It's okay to experiment with alcohol too without declaring yourself any kind of label for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we do that, we're leaving people. I mean, for me, it was a barrier. It was definitely a barrier because I didn't know what to say
Yeah.
and I didn't know how to describe it and I didn't know who I was. And I didn't start this process of evaluating my relationship with alcohol with the goal of being sober.
Right.
I wanted to keep drinking,
Yeah.
obviously.
Want to figure out how to
right.
how
I wanted
to.
to drink the
Yeah.
right way or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's how like most of my clients start, right? They want to
Mhm.
be normal drinkers is how they start. But once you remove alcohol, you start to recognize some of the ways that it affects you
Mm-hmm.
and you start to feel better and you
Mhm.
start to see it for what it is, and you might choose differently. And for me, I can honestly say I know alcohol was such a problem, not because of history or genetics, even though all those things might be there, because of how damn good I feel without it.
Mm.
Truly, like some people would have no idea, right? Like
Yeah. Oh,
as
yeah.
a drinker, being a non-drinker, waking up every day and feeling good, being really aligned with myself spiritually, emotionally, physically, the whole thing, it
Mhm.
feels so good
Yeah.
that I can see that alcohol was clouding everything that mattered to me.
Yeah. You know, I love that, and I so respect it, but it interestingly was not my experience, and I wish it was.
Yeah.
But there was such a, and I don't know. I mean, of course, years of therapy trying to figure this out, but what was it about me that when I would go for short periods of time without drinking, I felt better in the sense that I wasn't riddled with anxiety and like just having that panic and the need for alcohol, but I still like did not, maybe I just didn't do it long enough. Like I didn't know who I was. I didn't know my moral compass. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what I liked, what I didn't like. I didn't know who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And that was scary enough
Mm-hmm.
to make me go back to drinking. Every time I took a break, it was like, man, there's a lot of work that is ahead of me
Mm-hmm.
to sustain this. And that alone made that anxiety creep back up and the desire and the cravings, increase.
I feel you. I definitely feel you because I was so wobbly and, like I said, scared and afraid of everything.
Yeah.
And I still probably am. But my head hitting the pillow at night, like I did it, I had like this little shred of a relationship with myself
Mm-hmm.
that I had never had.
Yeah.
So even when I felt alone in those social situations or unsure of a wobbly voice, unsure of how to explain myself, I started to be with me. I started to get to know who I was.
Yeah.
Have you gotten there since?
I am 100% there.
Yeah.
But I think what age
Yeah.
was a major factor there.
Yeah.
So when I was in my mid-20s, I could have cared less about me.
Yeah.
I didn't know nor care, nor have any kind of relationship with any of that cerebral kind of feeling, that spirituality stuff. Like that stuff was never a part of me back then. As I grew older, you get closer to half of life, and then you're starting to say, wow, these days I need to cherish these a little more. Then you start to seek a little more, and your journey becomes a little more laid out in front of you. Whereas when I was young, man, I just was not thinking of that stuff.
Yeah.
I stopped because I had to.
Yeah. I get you. I think I wonder too often, like what's age and what's this journey,
Yeah.
Yeah. And how that goes together. But I was always a seeker for that. And I feel free without it. I was so anxious to have a drink. Always. I mean, I remember visiting my grandma and like having her stop at a bar in like rural Wisconsin. So I could buy a bottle of wine. They didn't sell bottles of wine, but just like give me something just so I can spend the night with my grandma. You know, like
Yeah.
the need, or like I was a smoker, the need to always get my fix, to be free from that, which didn't happen in 30 days.
Right.
So that's another
Right.
illusion, right? You're probably going to feel tired and grouchy for 30 days if you drank like I did. But if you go longer, right? And there might be a shred of something that feels good. And for me, that absence of that also brought me anxiety. Where's my next drink? How am I going to get it? How am I going to recover from it? How am I going to hide it? How am I going to... That created its whole own set of anxious thoughts and behaviors.
Totally. So what's the message in all that?
Ditch the drink, man. No.
Ditch the drink. We're gonna dive into that in a second.
No,
we're
I
gonna
think
wrap with
let
ditch the drink.
yourself explore.
Yeah.
Let yourself explore without labels, right? And it's not always about drinking or not drinking. Learn to have a relationship with yourself.
Yes. Yes.
And tune into you and start listening to you and burn through. Like these coats of armor that we wear, and alcohol is a mask too. Like, for instance, if you go into a social situation, like a networking event, let's say, that's pretty cringy for a lot of people. And it will be.
I love the word cringy.
Oh, yeah. It will be. Let yourself be a little cringy. The first 15 minutes of any gathering can be a little nerve-wracking. But after that, you know, you might settle in. So you don't have to run from yourself, I guess is what I would say, and get to know yourself. And for me, the best path to self-discovery was sobriety. I mean, that's what helped me develop a relationship with myself. So that's what sustains me here now.
Yeah. The getting to know yourself and the appeal of that. I mean, I guess that was my biggest hurdle was, you know, having grown up in a household that was pretty riddled. It wasn't the most pleasant of places. You know, I mean, I certainly got everything I wanted, and you know, externally and superficially, it was fantastic. You know, emotionally and on a connection level, it was lacking. And so, you mentioned the negative self-talk and that inner critic. Man, that guy was brutal for me. And so, getting to know myself, that was who I was getting to know.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it.
But I hope you've changed that voice to a voice of compassion now,
and
right?
I'm talking years ago.
Right, but that's what happened to you.
Yes.
And that's then what my clients say is like, your voice of compassion has replaced that inner critic.
Absolutely.
So we're all lying to ourselves too, if we hear ourselves, right?
Yes.
And you're not the inner critic, you're the voice that hears the inner critic.
Yeah, I love that.
So you
I
can
love that.
be the person that recognizes that and start to shift that. And it happens over time. And it happens really imperfectly, of course. But we are able to do that. And you live in your head, right? Make it a really nice place to be. And no matter where you're at, but if you're on this side of middle age, right? It's beautiful to create a safe place for yourself, to discover yourself and explore. And I think looking at alcohol is a beautiful way to do that.
I love you're not your thoughts. You're who hears your thoughts.
Yeah.
That's such a good one. All right, let's do ditch the drink. Let's just promote the shit out of it. So tell us how it started. Tell us what it is. Tell us how to get involved. I mean, we're releasing this in January. People are going to be dry Januarying. And I know you offer some stuff around that. Let's tell me all about it.
Thank you so much. I love talking about Ditch the Drink, of course.
Perfect.
So I started it because I was between jobs, and after I had quit drinking for a year, and it should be known that I didn't tell anybody but my inner circle that I quit drinking for a year. So I didn't start out as this bold, sober coach or anything. I started out scared. But I put together everything that helped me in my first year of sobriety, and I put it into a digital class. And I invested in this platform because I wanted other high-achieving women like me to know there was options. And I wanted to do it privately. I wanted to do it on my own, right? Like a lot of people do. So I wanted to offer a platform for people to do that. So that's how Ditch the Drink started with my Jumpstart class. It's still there. I always think about updating it, but I go back. It gets such good reviews, and I go back and look at it, and I was so close to early sobriety myself. It's like special, like vintage,
Yeah.
to like have been there wobbly, but trying to teach people,
Yeah.
right? And being so close to them. So that's still there. You can take that 6-week class. From there, I got trained and certified as a professional recovery coach and life coach. I got a certificate of well-being from Yale University. I got a certificate of law of attraction, all these things.
Wow.
Got certified. So now I also offer one-on-one coaching for people, which is beautiful. It's a package called Becoming. And with all my programs, I have a new thing to offer, and that's community. Community is something that came later in my journey, and it has made a world of difference, of course, as you know, anybody knows. So I have an insider community, and that is, we do group calls twice a week, and there's replays available for those that can't make it live. And then there's a private online platform, and there's master classes. So all of your favorite people in the sober space are probably have a master class.
Really?
Whether that's on sleep or anxiety, a lot of the things we've talked about, overall personal development and wellness. That's all in there. And then now I have this beautiful thing where some of my clients have become coaches themselves. So I have a course to teach other coaches how to launch their business.
God's work.
It's so beautiful. I love it. And, it goes to my social work heart,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
And I had a serendipitous moment one time when I started this. I was working in a bonus room off my bedroom, which is a closet. And there I am at my computer working on, Ditch the Drink. And I was remembering in 3rd grade, I worked in a closet. My mom, I was like a latchkey kid, right? And when I got home from school and I had to wait for my mom to get home from work, I worked at a business that I called Dare to Dream from my closet. And my cat was my only client at the time, but I wanted to help people
Lucky
live their
cat.
best lives. Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, DTD, Dare to Dream, Ditch the Drink. This is exactly what I meant to do. So it's really, really beautiful. I love the path it's taken. Even though I had some success in my sales career, it never sung my soul like this does. So to wake up, do what I love, I'm a helper, of course, right? That was all in my background. So it's been a really beautiful journey. If anybody is considering ditching the drink, give it a try.
Absolutely.
Get a coach, get some support, and get community.
Well, reach out to Ditch the Drink.
Reach out to Ditch the Drink. Oh, yeah, and I got a Dry January challenge, of course. I should mention this, but we often do challenges, but we are doing different types of challenges. There's prizes and giveaways and all that fun stuff. But come do Dry January with us. Just give it a try. That's how I started. I actually started with a 100-day sober challenge, and I only made it to 70 days, thought I was cured. And I love to say, that was the best failure of my life because it eventually brought me here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it started with, going for 100 days and making it to 70. And then it's just learning. It's just discovery, right?
70's pretty darn good.
Yeah, it is good. It is good.
That's awesome. Well, this episode is going to come out in January, so it might be behind the start date for a January challenge. But I assume you do other challenges as well, and
Absolutely. Yeah. And my sober date is actually February. And I think there's lots of people that do Dry January and stick with it, and that ends up being a date for them. But also come in February. That's my personal favorite time. So you're always welcome at Ditch the Drink.
Love it. Love it. D to D. D to D. I still think you need a big old tattoo of D to D.
I can get it this afternoon.
Not a tattoo
Maybe after
guy.
we eat.
Yeah, I know the spot. Heather, this has been fantastic. I'm very honored you made the trip down here to do this. It really does warm my soul that you found value in what we do enough to make the trip.
Oh, it's so cool.
It really is. It is very meaningful to me. So I really appreciate that. I've got one final question that I think you may know what is if you've ever listened to our episodes, which I know you have. And it is, Heather Lowe, why do you care?
Sharing your stories heal. And sharing my story makes a difference. For me, it builds my confidence and shares my truth. So we all want to help other people, but we also want to help ourselves, right? But also it was hearing stories of other people that I admired. And if you can see yourself in somebody else, that might be the nudge to try something new or different or get help. So that's why I care. And I'm super grateful for your awesome platform. I love the Champagne Problems podcast. I've been begging to come on, let's be honest. I'm just a huge fan. So to be a guest feels really special. And your studio is beautiful. And I'm so happy that I got to come in person.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you.